Oh, you mean slide it to land? That point down, over the. Okay. Hmm. Um, one moment. But this is yeah. Uh, okay. Yes. So you have the so
And we have meeting.
yeah. I remember that year ago I was posting, but I knew that I had to switch from like Charleston to other, and when I was not aware of that.
reached that outer space, the thing we felt compelled to do was turn to look on Earth, our home, the whole of it in one small view. Those vast and varied nations plain observed together on one ball, and then it was understood one thing we are, one planet all. And that was by an Athos Anastheo. Just thought it was appropriate for today, and there's a little bit of rotary in there as we're looking at one world together. Our Happy Thoughts fundraiser has been very successful, and our current total is 816, well on our way to a goal of $1,000. And where did it go? There it is. Whoa, this one's a lot louder. I'm going to engage Mark because Mark has some guests here, so I thought it would be great to get him involved with today's meeting.
Thank you, President Dave. Yes, I do have some guests with me today. 2 guests and my mother. Who I don't want to call her a guest, but she hasn't been to Rotary for a while, so good to see you today. I guess we have Evita Hansen, who's my niece, graduating from Mayo, and Emma Lang, who is her good friend, also graduating from Mayo and was an exchange student here last year when she went to Belgium. Now, if I have a second, these 2 girls were part of the Mayo High School. What are you talking about?
It's about global affairs. Do you want to start, Emma? Yeah, I can start. So this April, we got to go to DC because we won our state global affairs championship. And we got to compete nationally, and we got 5th, which was it was the highest a Minnesota team has ever gotten. And we won state, which was also really cool. And I'll let Alita talk a little bit more about the topics and stuff.
A little bit more about what our global affairs team is, since most of you probably aren't familiar. It's not really a big thing yet, but basically we compete by answering questions about things going on around the world. So at the beginning of our school year, we're part of a club that studies these topics. So we get 10 different topics, and we were with 2 other teammates who obviously are not here, but between the 4 of us, we split up our topics. So some of those concern space and national security, NATO, critical minerals in Africa, and a lot of other topics. And then we answered 50 questions at the state competition and 100 questions at the national competition concerning those topics. At the state one, we got 37 out of 50, and at the national one, we got 74 out of 100, which is the exact same percentage, right? We're very consistent. But yeah, it was really awesome. We're very thankful. We were sponsored by Global Minnesota, which put on our state event, and they sponsored our entire trip financially. So we were really grateful for that. It was a super awesome experience. We got to go to the UAE embassy, meet a couple of diplomats, the Mexican diplomat. It was a really cool experience for us.
Here we go. Well, welcome. Thank you. Congratulations. And I'll still point her to Christine.
Oh my gosh, I'm already emotional, but it's my baby. So this is my son, Jackson. He'll be graduating tomorrow night from Byron High School. And I will let him tell you where he's going to college this fall.
Well, we're actually going.
Oh, wait, okay, we're not gonna say that, okay.
No, we're actually going to have an introduction of all of that
Sounds
later.
good, we'll just do that.
Just the
Yeah,
introductions.
okay. Are we doing happy bars?
Yes,
I got
doing happy
I have a
bars.
cash one. All right. So that is definitely for the blessed, beautiful weather next Friday.
Thank you. We got Randy over here sneaking away.
Yeah, happy horse. His right leg, one his left leg. Because she ran the marathon last week, 2 miles, I think it was. She's never done it before, and she walked this for about 3 days after. And she finished number 2. Teenage girls that participated in the run, so just congratulate her.
Thank you, Randy. And I don't know if some of you know that Luca's doing track this year too. So she also ran hurdles. She told us at the 100 celebration that she ran hurdles for the very first time and took 3rd in her meet.
I have had
Oh, this is long. I have happy bucks for the completion of Strive this year. We had our celebration the night before the 100th anniversary celebration at Godfather's Pizza. We had a good turnout and we had lots of good scholarships earned by the students and perfect attendance. And thank you to any of you who were mentors. We appreciate it and we're looking forward to next year and more mentors.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any other happy bucks over here to Lee?
This is my happy buck that the 100 thing anniversary last year, last week. I was starting to get, there it is for that, number one. And number two, I just got a haircut.
Hey, looking good. Thank you very much, Lee. It was a good celebration last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I just have a few happy bucks, three things. One, the 100th anniversary I thought went really, really well, and God bless our club. The second is we celebrate Asia Pacific Islander Month this month, and we had a visit with the Thai Royal Embassy ambassadors up in the cities. That went really well. And I'm really excited for Rotary International Convention coming up in Calgary next month.
Thank you, Ashok. Any more for the happy bucks today? Okay, so we had $5 from John. He's pulling everybody's legs there and saying, give an extra dollar. So here's $5 from John. Then I'll also do the guests here since I got the microphone. We met Jackson Erkey. We met Emma and Evita. We have Mason Polar. Is that correct? Mason is with the Rochester Fire Department. Would you like to say anything at all today?
Sure. So I was here a few weeks ago. If you weren't here, I'm your newish fire chief, started around the first of the year. Previous Rotarian back in my hometown outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just getting out, getting my face known, and eventually I'll land in a civic organization somewhere here in Rochester, probably Rotary. But yeah, just thought I'd stop in today and be seen.
And hopefully the Rochester Rotary.
Thank you for joining us today. Welcome. Let's see, Colin has a guest. His daughter Jennifer.
Before we introduce more guests, Melissa is scheduled to come back the end of September and talk about not fire. No, he's not coming to talk about fire. He's coming to talk about running of the bulls. Do I have that? Right. So very unique. So watch for him at the end of September. I'm going to introduce my daughter Jennifer. Has some time on her hands now as she transitions to the next life career. And before she goes, I want to show to you now, who is the Rotary Exchange Chair. And Jennifer knows we hosted 3 exchange students, and maybe in her future she could do the same. No pressure.
The twins would love it. That's an extra person in the house, wouldn't they? And George, would you like, I see you have a special guest with you today. Would you like to introduce them at all? Okay, how about the little one here?
This is Hazel and my great granddaughter.
Give her this week. You want to say hi? Very good, well, welcome. And it's your dad that's going to give the presentation today? And you know everything about it, right? All right.
I didn't know when he was working on it, he wouldn't let.
Secret stuff. All right, well, let's welcome all our guests today.
Yeah, this one is definitely louder. Good. Thank you, Mark, for both of those. We have a number of birthdays and anniversaries. This is the list of birthdays for this month and also the anniversaries. And all of those are also listed in the moccasin flowers. So big congratulations to everyone who has a birthday and an anniversary this month. So I want to take a moment today, very special moment, to congratulate our 2025 graduates. So the first on our list, you've met Jackson Thomas Erkey. He was a 2025 graduate of Byron High School on May 23rd, and he'll be attending the Nelson School of Management at the University of Minnesota, majoring in marketing. So could you please stand? Congratulations. Next, George L. Allen III, grandson of George Allen Sr. He lives in Clovis, California, and plans to attend Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona in the fall. So congratulations to George Allen III. And we have Judy online with us via Zoom. Ian David O'Fallon graduates from Jordan High School in Durham, North Carolina. His activities include ultimate frisbee, Jordan High School Orchestra, where he plays the cello in the writing club, and he plans to attend St. Olaf in Northfield, Minnesota. His preliminary college major choice is chemistry. So congratulations to Ian.
Good, thank you.
Parker Dribbs graduated from Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis. He earned a hockey scholarship as a top-notch official and will use it at Augsburg University in Minneapolis, where he will attend and study kinesiology.
Ooh.
His parents are Michael and Yvonne Dribbs, and his grandson, he is the grandson of Sue Dribbs and nephew to Mark Dribbs. So congratulations. Evita Hansen will be graduating from Mayo High School, and she's planning on attending the University of Wisconsin-Madison and will major in international studies and Spanish with minors in Arabic and criminal justice. That's a lot. Hoping to pursue a career in diplomacy or national security. Her parents are Susie Dribbs and Kelly Hansen, and she's the granddaughter of Sue Dribbs and the niece of Mark Dribbs. So if you could please stand. And then Emma Lang is graduating from Mayo High School. She was a Rotary Exchange student from 23 to 24 in Belgium. Her parents are Steve and Lindy Lang, and she will be attending DePaul University and will be double majoring. We've got a lot of folks that are really pushing it here in French and international studies. So if you could stand. So congratulations to all of our graduates. And for those in attendance, could I have you quickly come up here? And we're going to take a quick picture. The graduates, yes. I'm going to have you just right here in front of the Rotary Club flag. Yeah, I'm on the side. Sure.
Perfect, even it out.
Thank you. Congratulations, guys. So I want to give a big thanks to our 100th anniversary committee and a special thanks to Vicki Allen on the wonderful celebration. Great job. And you can see we had about 50 current Rotarians there. That's one of the largest gatherings of current Rotarians we've had in quite some time. But it was a wonderful celebration. So great job to the team. You're invited to the installation of our next district governor, Glenn Bowers, on June 12th at Shorewood Community Center from 4:30 to 7:30. And then, oh, hang on. We're going to stop for a moment. This was an add-on to our agenda because I wasn't sure if you were going to be here or not. So I had it kind of tucked away and we brought it up front. So Lori, if you could join us. So one of the honors I have as past president is to present Paul Harris as president, is to present Paul Harris Fellow recognition pins to our club members who've contributed to the Rotary Foundation. The Paul Harris Fellows, or they have been gifted Paul Harris points from existing Paul Harris Fellow members or have provided funds themselves. The Paul Harris Fellowship is named for our Rotary founder, Paul Harris, who started Rotary in Chicago in 1905. Rotary established this recognition in 1957 to encourage and show appreciation for substantial contributions. From an initial fund of $26, this foundation has grown to over $1 billion today. The Paul Harris Fellow recognition acknowledges individuals who contributed or have made contributions in their name to the Rotary International Foundation in increments of $1,000. Multiple Paul Harris Fellow recognition is given in subsequent levels, starting with the gold pin. And in this case, this is a Paul Harris Fellow +6. And this is a pin with a ruby in it, or a red stone. So I want to congratulate you on reaching the Paul Harris Fellow 6.
Whatever's easiest. Sure.
So Lori, congratulations. Thank you. Love photographers got this one. Congratulations, love. That was a quick insert when I saw you walk in the door. So I had that slide locked and loaded and ready to go, but I wasn't sure if I was going to move it up. So now we have the installation of the district governor, as I read earlier. And then next we have the celebration and awards in the park event, which will be held June 5th at 5 p.m. at Bunker Hills Regional Park. Both of these items are on the District 5960 website. And if you would like to sign up for these events, please go to that website and there's a sign up location there. The next rotation day will be at Tilson's Auto Repair on May 29th. I'm excited about this event. If you think about all the changes that have taken place with cars today, I remember when I used to change my oil and the brakes and adjust the timing of my car, and I could do it all myself. Well, today I don't have a clue. You have to literally have a computer in order to make those types of adjustments on your car and tune it up. So Ben's group will be able to explain what it takes to maintain a car in today's complicated environment. And I understand that there will be an ice cream treat available for those attending. So please, yes.
I could add something to that. Ben has been, oh, sorry.
You certainly can.
Ben has been a mentor at Strive at ALC, and he was wonderful. And once or twice, the person didn't show up, the student, but he was there and, you know, he went back to the shop. He was okay with it, but I would really encourage you because he's really done well with, as a Strive mentor, that we support him in his business. He's very proud of it. He came to the celebration with his wife, 2 little children, and his wife pregnant with the 3rd baby. Oh, younger brother.
And I have heard good things from Cheryl about that as well. She's very happy to have him as a Strive mentor, so thank you. I want to give a big thanks to the White Oaks cleanup crew for their work last night. 2 of us are pictured here, but John Woodruff beat us to the punch. He was there earlier. A quick request, does anybody have any announcements today? Yes.
Dave, if you could just mention that our tree planting with.
You want to go to the next slide? Yes, I certainly will.
Okay.
No.
It's been rescheduled, obviously, with the rain. Last couple of days, for the people on Zoom and everybody that still hasn't signed up, you're welcome to come. We rescheduled from Tuesday with the rain date yesterday, which didn't work out here very well. And so we rescheduled for next Tuesday, 4 o'clock at Quarry Hill. So you don't need to sign up any more than you already have. So if you feel the urge, why don't you come out on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and from 4 till 5:30, 6 o'clock, we'll plant trees, and then there's pizza afterwards. So everybody's welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Just want to let everybody know, thank you, first of all, for everybody who contributed to the silent auction at our 100th anniversary event. We raised a total of $6,550. And I just quickly want to mention that if any of you are interested in Bill Wichter's and his wife Elaine case, they're having that pizza party. There are still 5 slots open. You can still sign up for that if you want. So if you are interested, let me know. Thank you. Yeah, Colin.
If you have not been to Bill and Elaine's house, you gotta go. They have a backyard that is like nothing else, and they have been to the Culinary Institute of Art, so they know how to cook pizza and bake pizza.
Sounds good. Any other announcements? Yes.
I'd just like to thank everyone who donated food and their time at the Jeremiah Cook for Kids program this past Tuesday evening. We served breakfast, and there was scrambled eggs and pancakes and mini muffins and fruit, and so it was a great time. So really, it takes a village, literally, to raise children, and we are a part of the Jeremiah Village, and so I'm very, very proud of that. Also, Cradle to Career, thank you again for coming out and supporting the Victoria's and the Sorlinas fundraisers. Between the 2 of those, we raised $850 for Cradle to Career. The Education Summit is tentatively planned for this coming Wednesday, October 29th. That is tentative, but you would want to mark that in your calendar. Hopefully that will be it. And they are still in need of donations, and you can donate money to Cradle to Career through, online, through Club Runner, and just in the drop-down box, just note Cradle to Career. And then that funding then will help also toward the Education Summit in October. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. And you notice I have a minute to spare. That was a big agenda. So today, Alex is going to be presenting on the NASA astronaut suit. But before you come up, now the grandfather does have an opportunity to.
That's right.
Why don't you introduce Alex?
Okay. Privileged that my oldest grandson is here today. Gotta get up for.
Oh, you know, you're good, you're good. Just,
He agreed to come and speak, and he was gonna do it auto rides, because he lives in Huntsville, Alabama. But he called a couple months ago and said, how about if I came in person? So he's up here for some family graduations and relatives and so on. And so I'm very pleased that Alex is here, and this is his older daughter. And actually, he just had to come along and sure he did a good job. Alex is a bioengineer, graduated from Mississippi State many years ago. And he got interested in bioengineering really by virtue. He called me one time and said, I want to be up in Rochester. Could you make arrangements for me to see what the orthopedic research people do? And so I took he and his brother over to the orthopedic research area. He got interested. At that time, he was in aeronautical engineering. And so he switched his major to bioengineering and spent a sort of unique career. So I'm very happy that he's able to hear and speak to us today. Alex?
Let me go ahead and take this off because I need to look back at the screen. I'm not that good with notes. I forgot to bring. So thank you for having me. Yes, I know Rochester very well. I was actually baptized down at the church close to downtown because my father graduated Mayo High School, went into the Army shortly after graduating college. So I was born overseas. You know, I never lived in Rochester, but we came back a lot with the family being nearby. I loved the geese until I got bit when I was like 12. Now I don't know worst enemy. So I took my wife around Silver Lake years ago, and she's like, "There's a lot of geese here." Like, yeah. So again, thanks for having me. This is the first time I've gotten to do a presentation basically to adults. I do this to schools all the time. I find reasons when I'm around the country, you know, family, friends, to go give talks. And this is the first time I've given a talk not in a flight suit. So thank you that I just get to wear a polo. If I'd known it was going to be cold as it is up here, I would have brought the flight suit because I was thinking it was gonna be warmer than it was. Just, you know. Okay, so a little bit about myself, and I take this presentation because for the last 5 years, Frank Allen, my uncle up here, I've helped out with the Game Haven Council with the Space Exploration Merit Badge. So I kind of adapted that to let you learn about me and stuff I've done. But as my grandfather said, I'm a biological engineer by degree, but I did 3 years of aerospace before I switched majors. So I kind of have a weird background in both of those worlds, which I was telling somebody earlier. It's interesting because it's a lot of the same equations in engineering. Bones and joints do the same things as titanium and steel for when you're doing a lot of engineering for structures. It's amazing how it's similar. And my first job, I didn't go to NASA straight away. I worked at a company called National Instruments in Texas. I was a software engineer. In that job. And the reason I was there is the wind tunnels I had worked on ran on their software. So they're like, oh, we'll take you. You know, so my first job, software engineer for a few years. And then a friend of mine from school who he came up to Alabama was like, hey, we have this job up here. You want to come up? So I went up there and I started as a technical contractor in 2009. Now, I'm still a contractor with NASA, but the way it works is we are not the traditional Boeing, Northrop Grumman, SpaceX that you think of that NASA gives money to and goes off and does work. We are totally integrated together with NASA. NASA gives me my office space, my computer, my email, everything is from that because NASA has a whole lot of work, but they only have so many civil servants. So we work in integrated teams directly. I can tell civil servants what to do, some of them are my bosses, back and forth. It's a whole team of us that work together on projects and everything. So I actually do oversight of Boeing, SpaceX, and all the other aerospace companies for a lot of the work that's done. So, but as I saw on the first screen, my email, if you want to email me, feel free, is alex.allen@nasa.gov. Really easy to remember for that.
So for the first 8 years, I worked on the water recovery system for the ISS, the International Space Station. And I'll discuss a little bit more about that. And then the 3 years, I was the lead systems for the carbon dioxide system for the space station. We did a whole new system. And if you've seen the movie Apollo 13, when they went from, square and round canisters, trying to fit them together, it's kind of funny. We went from square canisters to round canisters in the system to make it work. It was kind of a changeover that. And then during the middle of COVID, I got asked, hey, do you want to lead a new bigger team, be entire of a whole division? And I was like, great. And they're like, yeah, we've got 2 teams. We've got the design team, things you've been doing for 10 years, and we have this other team. I didn't want the other team, but that's what they gave me. It's the vibroacoustics group. So if you think about, is it going to shake and fall apart? So whether it be rockets, satellites, every component, I lead a team now of about 40 folks, just the contractors, there's 40 of us, and we work with the civil servants, that we all work together to analyze everything that is launched or other projects to just know, how can we keep it from vibrating and shaking apart? The closest thing I could say you've ever seen is if you ever open up a washing machine, the electronics box is often covered in gel and everything. That's to keep it from all shaking apart, as the washer is going. And we do a lot of that. Every component, battery, from the smallest part to the entire rocket, we'll analyze. And my team does a lot of outside help for people. We're doing a Department of Energy project right now with a group in Denmark, where basically you take an oil platform, but it's not drilling for oil. You're going to stick wind turbines on it. So like the wind turbines way all around here, the GE ones, we're going to stick on top of a oil platform and tow it out in the ocean. And if you think about vibration problems, a 300-foot wind turbine on something in the ocean going like this is a big deal. So we have a big group leading that right now to figure out how that'll work, because offshore air wind turbines is going to be a big deal in the future. But we have some of the top expertise in the world on my team. One of the guys I found out who's lives in Texas, we let him be remote because he's semi-retired. All the software that the companies use, there's 3 main software programs. He's the guy who wrote the paper in the early 90s that it's all based off of. So all the software that people use is based on a guy named Clay Fulcher on my team who wrote this one paper that everyone does. And so that's why we get so many outside people coming to us. And then over the years of dabbles, I'll discuss the life sciences glove box and SLS ground support. And SLS is Space Launch System. That is the new Artemis rocket. I'll talk about that later. So where I'm at is I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, Marshall Space Flight Center, named after the General George C. Marshall. The Space Center where I'm at actually predates NASA in general. It was the original Army aviation and rocketry area that came up. We are where we are because the Germans, after World War II, Werner von Braun, those of you might know him, this is where they all settled. The famous space race joke is, do you know why we beat the Russians to the moon? Because our German scientists were better than the Russian German scientists. And it's true. I mean, von Braun and others knew who they were going to surrender to, and most of them came to the US. And the first few years, they were in Fort Bliss, Texas. That's the most misnamed military base because it's high desert in West Texas. And they were given an opportunity to find a new site. Huntsville, we're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and we have the Tennessee River, which is big right there, which gives you access to the Ohio and Mississippi River. So it reminded them a lot of Germany. So all the German scientists came there for what was going to be a decommissioned arsenal. And from there, they started the program based off the World War II rockets. The V2 became the Redstone rocket, all the way up through the Saturn V for the Apollo program and the legacy today. Other centers, you probably have heard of Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Everybody knows that one. That center, they are just in charge of launches. They don't do a lot of engineering, building, testing and much. That's done in other areas. What people don't realize, when a rocket launches from Kennedy, as soon as it clears the tower, mission control switches to Houston immediately. Because Houston, the other thing that people really know of, it's in charge of just astronaut training. You know, they don't do rocket design, engine design, or a lot of other work. Their job is just astronaut training, and now they're getting into robotics a little bit. And you have a lot of other centers around the country that do different things. The first A in NASA stands for aeronautics. So a lot of the Armstrong, Glenn, Vandenberg Air Force, Ames, they're a lot more into the, you know, aviation side. So airplanes, supersonic stuff, everything in the atmosphere. And then the S for space is, again, Marshall, where I'm at, Kennedy, Johnson Space Center, and then Goddard over by DC and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They're the ones that do a lot of those robotic and science missions to other planets. That's their big forte. So every center kind of has their specialty in what they do. In Huntsville, we're in charge of mainly rockets, engines, and somehow we ended up with life support for the space station. And then some of those other smaller centers, like Denton, Louisiana, and New Orleans, you have the Shoot Assembly Facility. That's actually part of Marshall, where I'm at. We actually oversight them. And that's how Glenn and some of the others. So some of them are small research areas that are actually controlled by a larger center. So you guys here, your closest is going to be Ohio, up there with Glenn Research. And they do a lot. They're a little bit more aeronautics, but they do help us out, and they have a pretty good team for our vibroacoustics team. So Redstone Arsenal, where we're based, is a huge area. We have over 40,000 people that work on that base every day, civilians. The entire base only has about 500 military personnel that are active duty. The rest are all tied to either NASA, the FBI's headquarters too. You'll hear a lot about the new head of the FBI trying to ship everybody down to us. We already have 6,000 of them, and more FBI is coming because of that. Missile Defense Command is based with us. So all those missiles that people want to launch at, the new stuff in the news about Golden Dome is all based out of Huntsville because of our rocket experience. The Material Command is with us as well. Think the quartermaster for the Army. So anything the Army buys comes through Huntsville. And then we have the Army Aviation Command, which I have some friends that work there. And there's only 3 organizations that can certify things for flight: the FAA, the Air Force, and the Army Aviation Command can certify planes. So that's about where we are. Let's see.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Why are they located mainly around the coastal areas rather than like
Mainly population centers. You know, somebody asked that one time, and you think about most part of the West where things are, and a lot of it becomes political. For launching space stuff, everything's in California, Florida, because you want to launch over water, and being closer to the equator is easier to launch. But a lot of them are, you know, historical research centers. There's some history, you know, like what was there starting, say, in the 50s when they're doing their, you know, the big science push after Sputnik. So it just depends on the area and what they were doing and stuff. So.
Thank you.
Yep. I always joke, the reason like Houston's in Houston is who was vice president in the 60s. That is why it's there. You know, Johnson was vice president, and vice president traditionally is head of NASA, so he put it in his district. The building I work at is 4755, has 2 big wings from the Apollo era. This is where they built a lot of stuff. The world's very first friction stir belt machine, where you put 2 pieces of metal and you basically mix them together. Is a very specialized type of welding that is the strongest. It'll break not at the weld. And the other half is where I was. And there's actually, that's a picture of my door where I put a thing on it to make it look like Star Trek. That's the roof. That's the view from above from the gantry crane. Those are leftover modules from the space station. They're actual ones that were just never used. We used them for testing and other stuff in there. We have a treadmill in there that people can go in there on purpose, and they like to collect sweat and other samples from people by running in there in a closed environment, vacuum tanks and everything. And this is a place, if you ever come down, the public bus tour can get you in there. That little lower corner, that little block on the right side, that's actually a museum that the public can go to with glass looking over everything. So my first, you know, almost 9 years there, I was working on this water recovery system for the ISS. And the history is you never had to worry about water from the very first astronauts going into space all the way through space shuttle, because How did they make electricity? Their electricity was they just ran a generator, a power unit that ran on hydrogen and oxygen as their fuel. The byproduct of that was water. So the whole time they're making electricity for, the day, minutes, days, weeks they were up there, their power system also made their water. In fact, it made so much water that before a space shuttle came back, they would dump hundreds of gallons out the window to lighten the load before they came back. Starting in 2001, we're sending astronauts on the space station for long-term missions. Space station is solar powered, so you no longer have these power units that are running all the time. It'd be too expensive to run for years on end these power units and shipping up oxygen and hydrogen as fuel all the time. So we had to find a way to make clean water. So this water recovery system, basically I tell kids, it's the same thing that the Earth does with clouds and, evaporation, cleaning the water and distilling process. The problem in space is we don't have the gravity, so we have to create it with that big cylinder in the middle, spins and shoots the water, the liquids out and vaporizes it and recondenses. The problem also is a lot of stuff that we're trying to recycle. Think about your main water source. It's probably the bathroom. So the stuff that we are trying to turn into drinking water is some of the worst stuff you can do. And to make sure it's sterile, we have to add chemicals to it. So we added sulfuric acid and all sorts of chemicals so that it would stay, I say clean and sterile, just not have growth in it. And the other problem is that stuff is highly corrosive. So my first day on the job, they just had their first failure. This had gone up a few months earlier and it failed. This is where having, chemists and medical background came in handy. The failure occurred is we used sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid, when you combine it with urine, astronauts, you always hear about bone loss. We never knew where calcium left the body. Calcium leaves the body through urine when you're in space from a lack of gravity. All the urine we had here that we were testing with, which you can go to our bathroom and they always take samples, there's a bucket, didn't have the calcium in it. So as soon as they go into space and they're using astronaut urine, it has this calcium in it. And so the calcium mixed with the sulfuric acid made calcium sulfate. Another name for calcium sulfate is drywall. So you can imagine the system being gunked up with all this essentially drywall in the system, and it flooded, and it's corrosive, and anything that wasn't made out of titanium got eaten away, the metal. So my first job on this was change out all the parts and on the drawings and figure out everything, because it ate through stainless steel, it ate through all the aluminum, and work on this. So for many years, this was my job, working on this. There were always various issues with it. Pumps would fail, we repair and replace. Go next slide. So those are some of the units that we would send up as replacements. At one point, we sent up 4 at the same time. There's some of the CAD drawings I worked on for how it all goes in the rack. Updated motors. Some of this technology was first designed in the 90s to get shipped up by 2001. And then, working on it 20, 30 years later, a lot of upgrades needed to happen there. We learned a lot more about the chemistry. We don't use sulfuric acid anymore. We use phosphoric acid in the system at different concentrations. It's a lot of fun, interesting on this. The joke is I'm glad we work on number 2 and not the number 1 for different things. But it was really interesting. And the history of this goes back to Columbia with the Columbia explosion in 2003. I was in college then. Our test unit for this was on Columbia. And that was part of the problem is they found most of the pieces in Texas. One was in a lake. A lot of pieces hit the ground and they were able to recover it. But trying to back engineer, what's the damage caused by hitting the ground? What's damage, that occurred on orbit with the testing? Maybe they would have found this calcium problem early on. We don't know. But there's a direct history from Columbia to this program. And to date, it's working great now. Pumps have to be changed out every once in a while, but they're on a schedule, and it has saved millions of dollars, almost over 100 million, I think last time I saw, because it's about $30,000 to send up a pound of weight to space. And this constantly is saving you, it's about 89% efficiency on switching that over. So really good program. Proud I got to work on that. Go next one. Then I got tasked with the carbon dioxide system. And this was the old system. This is the astronauts working on it. Had a real problem with it because the stuff that pulls CO2 out of the air also liked to turn itself into powder. It was special pellets. Navy uses it on the submarines for scrubbing CO2, but space had, with the microgravity environment, had problems. So valves were failing, the beds weren't as efficient, all sorts of things were constantly being changed out. So we got asked to, yeah, let's apply 21st century technology to it. Let's just build kind of a similar system, but something better. And so we came up with what we call the CEDRA, or it became the CEDRA system, carbon dioxide removal. And we went from square canisters to round canisters because we found out as you heat things back and forth, the square canisters was pulverating the pellets versus round canister just held it in there a little bit better. And we found different packing techniques. We came up with valves that never had to be replaced or repaired. They were self-cleaning as they went around, only in one direction, instead of going back and forth constantly. And a lot of different pressures and stuff in there. So that got installed back, let's see, that was in late 2021. It was a experiment that was only supposed to last 6 months to a year. We were competing with 3 other replacements that got sent up. We won the competition and they shut down the original system now. We are the go-to only system running up there right now because it runs at such a good efficiency that they're like, oh, this is better than what we have. So now the old system is the backup to this. What was really cool about this project is, 3D printing, when I started working at NASA, barely anyone was using it much for anything. As over the years, I go talk to schools. I mean, half the kids, their parents might have one at home. With plastic printers, but we do metal printing for stuff. And a lot of that CEDRA system, just move the pictures over. I want to show that middle one. So the top picture is a picture of an old pipe. Your traditional, right angles welded, and welds get them approved for space is a whole nother issue. We went to 3D printed down there on the bottom. And when you look at those, we didn't have the pressure drop. For those familiar with pipes, and every time you do a bend or an angle, it's worse for the flow. We were able to get the same flow out of a pipe bent in 2 different directions in 2 planes. It flowed as if it was a straight pipe. And this allowed us to do a lot of various things, with placements and, rerouting around everything, because otherwise we had to use straight segments with a whole lot of welds. And this one. Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot more of the pipes that we use. We're able to add little things. We post machine the ends. We didn't want the air to leak, but they go on special clamps. And these clamps were a big deal. Everybody loved them. And they're like, where'd you find these? And we were like, NASCAR. NASCAR uses these for quick flow. They basically, clamp around real fast. They have a lot of movement. They still seal and everything. So people like to say, oh, you developed something new. It's like, no, we will go to industry. This system used a cooling system that we contracted from an F1 racing team for engine cooling. But it was a really good way to cool the air using hypodermic needles all in the system. They ran the air past, and this F1 team had been making stuff like that. So we use their technology along with these clamps and everything to do well on that. So, and that's the future. Metal printing gives you a lot of options. There's already a 3D printer on the space station that's plastic, and they are currently working on a metal one. So if we're going to Mars missions, that'll help out a lot when you can just print what you need out of metal, replacement parts and everything, instead of shipping it all with you. I'd always like to talk a little about this nowadays. A few years ago, finally, when SpaceX got their, we call it the space taxi, their F9 Falcon going up. We depended on the Russians from many years after the end of the space shuttle program for getting into space. Once we got the Falcon 9 Dragon capsule going, it was really helpful to us for people and all sorts of materials. We already have U.S. companies, Northrop Grumman and others have things that can send cargo, but this was the only way to send people up. And we do a lot of oversight of them to make sure everything they do is good. Because launching a human into space is a lot different than cargo. Cargo, you don't care about how many G's you're pulling and how much your vibrations are going to ramble somebody's brains. When you send people, it's got to be a very particular rocket. You can't just use any rocket and stick a person on there. A lot of different requirements for that. So they're really good. We do a lot of oversight with them. You can go next slide. If you ever find yourself in Florida, we were having dinner one night in Port Canaveral, which is where all the cruise ships go. And SpaceX was just bringing in their rocket because they now land them on platforms, either on land or on sea, and just go a couple hundred yards out. They also try to catch the top fairing of the rocket that protects the astronaut part. They've got these big ships that have big open nets. So a lot of what they're doing is very interesting, being able to do reusable rockets. But they're, when we launch our astronauts, we don't let SpaceX reuse a rocket. When they can reuse it for other things, but when you ever see an astronaut on a SpaceX rocket, that'll be the first time that one's used. Because there's just a lot of issues with refurbishment, if there were cracks or other things unseen. So every time we launch people, it's the first time it's used. SpaceX might take that same section and use it another 25 times for what they're doing. Oh, yeah, got to go to a launch down there, Hadley, so you were down there, got to meet the astronauts. Whenever the astronauts come back from a space station mission or any mission, they swing by all the NASA centers and give us tours. So it's always a lot of fun to get to see them and everything. And they are great people. If you ever get a chance to meet them, they're always very outgoing and love sharing what they're doing as well. Now, I'll talk about the new rocket. You probably remember a couple of years ago, we launched Artemis 1. It was the big one. It's the big rocket we've been working on for many years. It's the only one capable of leaving Earth and going to the moon or to eventually Mars. It's basically a derived shuttle with a tank and boosters, although they're enlarged. And instead of they can carry up to 6 people if you need to on this. So the next Artemis 2, which will be the first one with crew, is slated to launch in January 26 right now. And difference between us and SpaceX and companies we oversight is we do so much analysis that we nailed it the first time. The chief engineer said, "You guys did a great job. You hit a piece of paper from the side with a 30-06 from a mile away." Was how good the data was and how everything went perfect on that mission. So we're looking really forward to Artemis 2. That is going to be the first time we're going to send astronauts the farthest they've ever been to the far side of the moon in orbit. And then Artemis 3 is slated to land on the moon after that. And we are partnering with SpaceX because they will have the landing vehicle that will go on. I'll say this, since no one's recording this, hopefully, SpaceX is delayed with their lander, so I don't know when we will land. But we will be ready with our Artemis 3 rocket to go with it. There was the Artemis 1 mission, went around, did everything, went around the moon for a long time. And this is just a good mission profile. Just wanted to show that. One of the things I got to work on is a lot of the ground transportation systems. I was tasked with this a little bit. We had all the different pieces of the main core stage. We had to figure out how to lift and move it. This stuff was built down in New Orleans, shipped up to Marshall, up the rivers, shipped back down to Mississippi to do testing in a wildlife refuge where they fire off the engines, and had to go up over levees that didn't exist in the 60s in New Orleans that are there now. From the Apollo days, it was in the same buildings it was built, but all those transporters and transportation hardware, my team helped, I was on the team, designed and built. And those yellow movers that are down the bottom, those are actually built not too far away in Iowa, in Dubuque. We jokingly sent our guy from Hawaii to Iowa in January to oversee this. And he had to go a couple times. It was quite funny. But some of the lifting with this, when they did the testing in Mississippi, it actually, to get it into the test stand, they had 4 inches of clearance around the entire rocket to actually drop it in a hole. There wasn't a way to bring it in from the side, the way that test stand works. So a lot of work went into that. There's just a little bit of showing the different sizes of various shuttles and rockets. The last 2 on the far right, that is the SLS 2 versions. This is an old one where they thought they were going to still paint it white but, they didn't for the tank. For people who are old enough, they ever saw the very first shuttle launch, it was all white as well. They decided to paint the tank, the orange tank was painted white. And somebody had the idea, well, why are we painting this? So from the second mission on, they never painted it because they saved 400 pounds of paint. But the very first launch, if you ever see it, was all white. We have a test stand out there that did a crush test, basically pressurize it like a Coke can and try to crush it. And we have that stand out there, and that's fun. I was mentioning, keep going back, keep going. This is the stand in Stennis I was mentioning, that had to drop it in from the top. Interesting to see, you can see the water right there. They bring it up from the Mississippi River to get there. They fired off there because they learned in Huntsville that if you use these big engines, it blew out windows for 20 miles. That's how strong the stuff is. And we're way too populated now to do that. So they do it in the wildlife refuge. This is the human landing system. My team's doing oversight for this. So SpaceX has their lander. The one on the far right is Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company. We call them Plan B. They are under contract to build a lander as well. Dynetics is one that didn't win in the competition. But SpaceX was under contract, and then a few years later we put Blue Origin under because they had a good proposal and they wanted to have a Plan B. I always mention Mars. It's always fun. Those are the robots that you've always seen over the last few years. You can see, I like the lower right picture because you see the different sizes. Nowadays, Curiosity and Perseverance, they're the size of cars. So the way they get those landed is they do a sky crane, basically, where it kind of fires jets and then lowers down the rover onto the surface. And Perseverance right now is the one collecting samples. And you go next slide. And Marshall is now in charge of getting those samples back to Earth. There's been a lot of issues trying to figure all that out, mission planning and what's going to work. But there's a coworker, Darius, who's standing next to the Mars ascent vehicle, which is the little rocket that rover will put the samples into and then send them back to Earth. So we always have a lot of projects going on. This is just a small sampling of what Marshall does. Other centers are always doing a lot. I know in the town I'm in, we're always space stuff's in the news. They put it on the 5 o'clock news, just as much as like you guys probably know everything going on in Mayo around here that's local in the news. But when I go talk to places in other areas, they only hear about the big splashy stuff. We've landed on Mars with a rover, we're launching a rocket, we're doing this. There are thousands of people and hundreds of projects always in the work that go behind the stuff you finally see on the news, by the end of it. Artemis 1, when we launched it, was a culmination of almost 10 years of work to get that rocket up and going. Anytime you see something, there's a lot of work that goes behind it. And I like to say we have a lot of various people. We have engineers, we have artists, we have, I call them the English majors that help our papers and do the technical reviews of that. We have a lot of opportunities for different things, but there's always a lot going on. In the agency, you'll hear a lot in the news about budgets being cut and other things. I've lived through that when I first got there, when the program changed, and we're in a phase now where it might change again. We never know what's going to happen, but there's always a lot going on. You keep your ear to the ground and you'll find stuff. I got 1 minute left, so I think that's it. And we did put Baby Yoda in space. There's always a stuffed animal that goes on a mission. They call it the zero gravity indicator. Is they want something to float around so they can signify that they're finally zero G. So there's always a stuffed animal in space on these launches. So you just don't my camera.
You have a projection of when you would go to Mars?
Mars is really interesting. You'll hear a lot in the news about wanting to skip the moon and go straight to Mars. We've had discussions in our group of you're years away. There are things, radiation between here and there. Astronauts on a 9-month journey each way, are they going to be strong enough when they get there? Refueling is the biggest problem right now. The plan for going to the moon and developing some stuff there requires like 9 launches. And they want to leave fuel up for months or years as they're building everything just for the moon. So the latest projections is like, it's gonna take 32 launches to go to Mars and one mission of how to put everything just to go one way. So if anyone tells you within 5 years, they're laughing. When we said 4 years ago now, or 5 years ago now, we're gonna be the moon in 5 years. It takes me 2 years just to get properly the right screws. These companies, you know, to get them aerospace certified and everything else, they were 18-month order and they were 6 months late. So a lot of work goes into all this. And so I would say if we put all the efforts to it right now, you're 10+ years, because there's a lot of things we just have to work out.
It's interesting to hear that you were working on vibrations and the impact on the various components. You have an uncle that also looks at the structural, I don't know what you call it, for airplane engines or jet engines.
Yep.
Your uncle Richard, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex, for a phenomenal talk. And we have a simulated astronaut that did Mars training, Dr. Shayna Gifford, and in our occupational medicine group. One of the challenges of public-private partnerships and government is there's 24+ countries now in space. Do you have any suggestions on how they can work together to bring to decrease the conflict and maybe share their lessons learned so we can be a little more peaceful on Earth?
We're on very good terms in most countries. The European Space Agency and JAXA, Japanese. You know, my group works directly with them all the time. By law, there's some stuff we can't do with China. That's been the big one where we can't, you know, do things together. They're totally separate. You know, you hear stuff what they're doing, news and us, but between the Europeans, us, and the Japanese and Canadians, they're their own space agency. That's really gets you most of the 24. India does a little bit collaboration, but they're different goals. We have mechanisms called Space Act agreements. That's how we do these public partnerships and everything. And it's all just depending on what a company's goal is. I've been to conferences for this vibroacoustic stuff where everybody's all talking about stuff, but a company like SpaceX doesn't want to give up their proprietary info and what they're doing and lessons learned, versus Blue Origin will come out and say, yeah, here's what we're doing. You know, it's all dependent on a company. And that the secret, you know, what can make them money is the hard part, because NASA is not an agency that we're not in it for the money. We're not going to return on investment in 4 years. We're a 10, 15, 20-year return on investment from technologies and everything. We'll make this last one. I see Colin getting antsy.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Very interesting. Can you tell me how many times have we been on the moon? When was the last time? And how does that compare to China's accomplishments?
So let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14, 6 times. I think we've been, none since the 70s. We're sending landers again right now as scouting missions to determine if there's water. We have people at Huntsville that are working on using lunar dust to make buildings, like 3D print or make bricks and stuff for lunar development to make habitats. But so far, the Chinese are very secretive about what they're doing, and they're very incremental. They've got their space station that they use right now is equivalent to our Skylab from the 70s. So intermittent, just a very basic one module station. So we're there. The hardest part is a lot of funding and incremental in technology. You know, things that no one's done before. You don't want to do it all at once. You got to figure out as you go. You know, so that's why Artemis 3, if we go from Artemis 1, 2, from going around to landing people on the 3rd, you think about it, it took 11, numbered Apollo missions before we landed on the moon. We're hoping to do it in 3 this time. So it's very ambitious, but that's what the budgets now do. If you look at budgets from the 50s, 60s of NASA to now, it's like 1/10 of what it was in the 60s equivalents. So you're trying to do more with less.
Just a comment, I'm old enough to recall that I believe the first moon lander was designed with a slide rule.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, slide rule engineering to computers now. Your cell phone, the entire computer for the Saturn V rocket, we have it in Huntsville, sponsored, it was built by IBM. And they've got your cell phone is equivalent to 20 of those computers at least. And they used hand sewn RAM. The memory chips are there, you can look them under a microscope, they were hand sewn for the computer.
Thank you very much, Alex, and for your wonderful presentation. And we will be donating to the Sports Mentorship Academy in your name. So thank you. And thanks to all of you who helped out today and volunteered. Again, I want to thank everybody who was involved with the 100th anniversary celebration. It was truly wonderful. And at that celebration, Mayor Kim Norton gave a proclamation, which was very wonderful. Anyway, with that, yes. Did I see here? Oh, I'm sorry. Have a great day.